Having said that, this is something I seldom do. We as a country are taking this seriously. It's still the Democratic Party. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Mo Ray, and this is The Other Side of Talk. Thanks for joining us. A lot to talk about. Pretty much the same thing to talk about. The election has been decided, but the president is determined to exhaust all his court cases. Today, there was a press conference held by Rudy Giuliani, who is now the senior lawyer in the president's defense team. And I don't know if you want to call it a defense team, but basically what they're trying to do is question elections in various states. The president keeps losing. You know, things are bad when even Fox News is questioning the president on his refusal to accept the results. And that's exactly what's happening. And of course, the president's followers are so dedicated that rather than say, oh, wow, even Fox News thinks this is suspicious. No, their solution is just stop watching Fox News. Fox News has suddenly become the enemy for some people on the right because they dare to tell the truth. They dare to admit that Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. They dare to question some of the president's dubious claims about fraud. He's yet to prove his assertions of fraud. And we are 2 weeks past the election now. The president has had numerous court challenges thrown out because he doesn't have a leg to stand on. And in fact, there was a press conference today with Rudy Giuliani, and that was interesting. There were some moments in that. And I think I'll tell you, by the way, let's see. Well, there's Tim. He says, hi, guys, from in Akron. All right, you're always first, Tim. And he says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And of course, that's the Wizard of Oz reference. If you haven't seen that movie or if you've never seen it, you should see it because really, that's what this is. I mean, the whole Trump presidency is really based upon lies, and his enablers in right-wing media, like the primetime crew at Fox, who are indulging the president in his fantasies that there's been some massive multi-state election fraud, when all the evidence is to the contrary. It seems like the harder they try to prove fraud, the more they are disproven. But I want you to listen to some of the comments that were made by Rudy Giuliani today at this press conference, and they are debunked by no less than Fox News. But here's Rudy today, and he's coming out swinging.
Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, the margin of victory now for Biden, which is not a victory, it's a fraud, is 69,140 votes. The reality is that we are now at a count of 682,770 ballots, for which we have affidavits that there was no inspection of that ballot at the time that it was entered in the vote. It was a mail ballot. Mail ballots are particularly prone to fraud. We were warned about that by Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, and Secretary Baker in a report about a dozen years ago, in which they said that mail balloting is particularly susceptible of fraud, that we should very carefully consider ever doing it, and that it can be taken advantage of. Justice Souter warned us of the same thing in a comment in an election law case. And even the New York Times wrote articles about how dangerous mail-in voting was. And this is the first time we ever did it en masse. And I think we proved that all three are prophets. It's not only susceptible to fraud, it is easily susceptible to fraud, particularly if you have a plan or scheme which sounds eerily similar to what Joe Biden told us a few days before the election, that he had the best voter fraud team in the world. Well, they were good. I don't know that they were that good because they made significant mistakes, like all crooks do, and we caught them.
Well, that's pretty disgusting, by the way. You got Rudy Giuliani without real evidence calling Joe Biden a crook. And once again, as I said, the idea that this is somehow some nefarious fraud in multiple states. By the way, did you notice what went on in Michigan? Crazy things happened there. One to Wayne County, and that's the county where Detroit is. They're ready to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters. One thing that Giuliani says is that Democrats are running things in these cities. That's not true. There are equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans on that certification board. And there was a little nervousness for a minute. Trump even celebrated. He thought he had a victory. The two Democrats. The two Republicans initially refused to certify the votes for Wayne County. Ultimately, they did. And so Trump loses again. As of Monday, I believe that the whole state of Michigan will certify their votes. The process is going on. The president is throwing a lot of distractions out there. He's undermining our institutions as he has done throughout his presidency. And this is not what you expect from the president of the United States. The president of the United States should be the one to uphold our institutions, to instill faith in them, to tell you that you can trust your elections, that you can trust your security forces like the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. But this president questions all that. Of course, and if anybody dares speak out against him, you see the guy from Homeland Security was let go. Mr. Krebs was let go for saying this was the most secure election ever. Well, that totally contradicts the president's narrative that this was a crooked election that was stolen from him. Well, prove it, Mr. President. You talk a good game, but federal judges all over the country are throwing your cases out because you just don't have the evidence to back up these accusations you're making. Let's see. Oh, Debbie says, hi, Mo, ridiculous accusations. No voter fraud in 2016. Secure voting in the USA. By the way, political signs allowed for 1 year here in Canfield. Trumpers have them up proudly. Ugh. Yeah, you know, I even passed a couple of Biden signs, by the way. But my whole thing on that is I hope that maybe some of these people will take their signs up in January. Then again, maybe they'll just leave them up as kind of like a single digit salute to those of us who did not vote for this president. But that's fine because, you know, leave your Trump sign up. I don't care if you got 20 Trump signs up. January 21st, pardon me, that is January 20th at noon. Joseph Biden will become the 46th president of the United States. So it's an empty display, but feel free to do so, although it will not change the outcome of the election. The president's baseless accusations will not change the outcome either. Neither so far will any of these legal challenges. Not a single state has been overturned by any of these challenges. And where were we there? What's up next? Oh, the follow-up with Giuliani. Okay, let's hear the rest of what Rudy said. And I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to play some clips from Fox News where they even call him out on his, well, he's just saying stuff, basically. Here's Rudy again.
From the vote. Why? For several reasons, not the least of which is that was basically only one of two places in the state where it was done. So in the other parts of the state, there was a legitimate inspection of the ballots. So if you have two different standards in different parts of the state, one favoring one part of the state, the other disfavoring the other part of the state, that's a classic violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution. Bush v. Gore being the most recent case that teaches that. That's not the only fraud that went on in Pennsylvania. All of the other frauds carried out in the other states by the Democrat bosses happened there as well. For example, if you made a mistake in that ballot and you lived in Philadelphia or in Pittsburgh, you were allowed to fix the mistake. But if you lived in what would be considered more Republican or Trump parts of the state, you were given no such right. One of our plaintiffs, Mr. Henry, cast an absentee ballot, and he failed to put it in the secure envelope inside. He just put it in open, naked. That ballot was cast aside because it was invalid, because that breaks the privacy of the vote. In Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia, if they noticed that there wasn't an inner envelope, they'd contact the voter and allow him to vote again. Or if he didn't fill it out completely, or if he made a mistake and didn't sign his full name, he was allowed to cure it. There is no such provision under the law of Pennsylvania. The Democrat Secretary of State made that up in order to maximize the votes in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and to minimize the votes in the other parts of the state. Clearly illegal, clearly voter fraud, easily provable, hundreds of witnesses, maybe thousands.
Well, and the funny thing is he's talking about all these witnesses. One thing you're going to see in the clip from Fox News is that they totally debunk what he's saying. And this was a report from, let me see, Kristen Fisher, that's her name. And Kristen Fisher's report pretty much calls everything that the president is saying into question. I mean, the president and Rudy Giuliani is saying into question. Because, well, let's put it this way. I mean, you're Donald Trump, you're Rudy Giuliani, and even Fox News is calling you out on your nonsense. But let's take a look at this report from Fox News. This was a little bit after Rudy gave his press conference today, and a nice breakdown of the facts.
But first, let's go to Kristen Fisher. She's live at the White House. Kristen.
Well, that was certainly a colorful news conference from Rudy Giuliani, but it was light on facts. So much of what he said was simply not true or has already been thrown out in court. And, Giuliani, he opened by making this really bold and baseless claim that a lot of this alleged nationwide voter fraud that he's referring to all came from one centralized place. He called it a nationwide conspiracy, and yet he failed to provide any hard evidence to back up that one specific claim, especially when you're dealing with a claim that really cuts to the core of our democratic process. Now, in Pennsylvania, Giuliani continued to claim widespread voter fraud in Philadelphia, even though he has already said in court, and I quote, "This is not a fraud case." So what he's saying in public, not under oath, is different from what he said in court. Moving on to Michigan, where the Trump campaign dropped its final federal lawsuit just this morning after two Republican canvassers in Wayne County say they now want to rescind their votes to certify the election. Giuliani says they dropped the lawsuit because the state did decertify, but that is not true. The results were certified in Michigan on Tuesday, and Biden won. As for evidence, well, Giuliani kept holding up pages and pages of what he says are sworn affidavits, hundreds of them, people claiming voter fraud and irregularities, but he's declining to show them, to show all of them at least, and listen to his explanation why.
Have their lives torn apart. I can't give you all these affidavits because if I do, these people will be harassed, they'll be threatened, they may lose their job. We have 100 more of these. I can't show them to you because those people don't want to be harassed. They don't want to have their lives torn apart.
Now, up on that stage with Giuliani was a big poster with the headline, "Multiple Paths to Victory." But Giuliani never credibly explained a single path, let alone multiple ones. So, Dana, the fact remains that the Trump campaign has yet to provide, at least in court, hard evidence of voter fraud and irregularities widespread enough to overturn the outcome of the election and to effectively challenge President-elect Joe Biden's stance as the president-elect. Dana?
Kristen Fisher, thank you.
And like I said, when Fox calls you out, I think it's pretty obvious that, there's a consensus out there that there is no widespread voter fraud, and that the president is just, of course, his faithful are eating this up. As I said, the saddest thing is that there are, I've said it before. I said it near the end of my time on my regular radio show, that the truth is dead, because it just depends. If you don't like the truth, these people don't want the truth. They want the Trump. They want to hear what he has to say. It doesn't matter how many people from various sides of the political spectrum say there's no there with his accusations of fraud, yet they continue to pound away at this. Well, let them. All the states should certify their elections in early December. That's the way it always goes. Nothing new there. Rudy's just blowing smoke. Sadly, some people are taking it in. But, that wasn't the only Fox News person who called out some of the deception that the president and his team is putting out there. And like I said, part of his team are the nighttime crew at Fox News. Laura Ingraham. By the way, even Laura Ingraham, though, seems like she's alluded to the fact that maybe he should accept the results. He should think about conceding. You even had one of the morning guys on Fox and Friends say that he should start thinking about conceding. So it's starting to go that way. But Sean Hannity, of course, he is a staunch sycophant for Trump. Trump can do no wrong in his world. Of course, these evil Democrats are trying to steal the election away from him, even though they can't prove it. But this was done about 3 days ago. And the guy's name is Eric Shawn. And I'm sure he made a lot of friends with Fox viewers by making the following comments. But everything he says is absolutely true.
Well, let's clarify the election facts as we know them right now. Rigged election? Well, your own government, election officials across the country, and voting experts say it's not true. Baseless claims that are inflammatory, designed to undermine your faith in American democracy. Here's the chairman of the federal agency, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, Ben Hovland.
The reality is this was the most secure election we've ever had, and it was one of the most well-run elections we've ever had. And this is about facts. This is about truth. This is about respecting our democracy, respecting our elections, and focusing on what has really occurred. The American people made their voice heard. And when we spread conspiracy theories, when we don't back that up with facts, it has an impact.
Now, as for the president's claim that Republican observers were blocked from watching hundreds of thousands of votes being counted in Democratic-leaning Philadelphia, well, in case you missed it, here's the top Republican election official in Philadelphia, Philadelphia City Commissioner Al Schmidt, on that with me on Thursday. The president says observers were not allowed in the counting rooms. Is that true?
That's totally untrue.
The president says, quote, bad things happened that our observers were not allowed to see. Is that true?
Absolutely not.
Have you seen any evidence of voter fraud here?
I have not.
And how about the allegations about Dominion voting systems, that they supposedly changed Trump votes to Biden votes? Well, here's part of the company's answer to that allegation. Quote, vote deletion, switching assertions are completely false. Dominion is a nonpartisan U.S. company. Dominion has no ownership relationships with the Pelosi family, Feinstein family, Clinton Global Initiative, Smartmatic, Skytho, or any ties to Venezuela. Dominion works with all U.S. political parties. You know, prosecutors say that any voter or election fraud allegation will be thoroughly investigated. And if the fix were in, if there was wrongdoing, we will know about it. But election officials across the country insist, as of today, there is no evidence of any widespread fraud affecting the outcome of the presidential election, that our precious democracy was not tampered with, and that such baseless and false claims are an insult to the thousands of election officials and workers across the country who we have seen dedicating themselves 24/7 to ensure a fair and free election for all of us.
And that's Eric Shawn from about 3 days ago on Fox News. But it also, the cases he references, this is what gets me. And if you looked at the other report, Giuliani is talking like none of these cases have been tossed, like none of this stuff has been disproven. But he will talk and somebody will listen. But I'm hoping that there are enough reasonable people in this country that come the first of the year, it will just be obvious that once the president has exhausted all his, all the avenues he can take to contest this, that they will accept the results. Of course, some people will never accept the results, and this will hinder Joe Biden's presidency because he will be viewed as illegitimate. To be fair, there are plenty of people that viewed the Trump presidency as illegitimate. So I understand. Let's get into this tit for tat game. But when you do that, nobody wins. We really could move forward and get some things done in this country instead of this constant stalemate we have. Of course, some things are hanging in the balance. I brought up the elections, the senatorial runoffs in Georgia. This could change everything. Although I haven't seen any polling, it does appear that historically, runoffs like this, particularly in the state of Georgia, tend to favor the Republicans. So even though you have Kelly Loeffler with her situation where she kind of cashed in when she found out how bad COVID was, and she made a nice little chunk of change for herself. And of course, she is a dedicated Trump supporter, always in his corner. She's running against a preacher, Reverend Warnock, I believe is his name. He's the preacher of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And I'm usually a church and state separation guy, but this guy's actually a very, I like his logic. He's actually reaching out to the other side. But I just think we're so divided that I don't believe we're going to be coming together anytime soon. I think this election will leave a bad taste in the mouth of those hyper-dedicated Trump supporters. And then you even have factions in the Democratic Party that are not happy with the more moderate approach that Biden appears to be leaning toward. You're already hearing rumblings from people like AOC and Richard and people like that who are not happy with the direction. And Omar out of Minnesota. So we'll see what happens. But there is a chance that we can get some things done. I put a post up saying that despite all the negativity, I still believe that there are good things possible, and let's hope there are. By the way, before I forget, the number here is 330-595-1600. I'd like to hear from you. What do you think about all this crazy stuff that's going on? And one more comment from Tim. He says, our enemies around the world have got to be loving this nonstop chaos and foolishness. Oh, you're absolutely right. And I've talked about that. Not only our enemies, but some of our allies. But in the case of, I won't say our enemies, but people who we try to lecture them on the democratic process and fair elections. I was listening to a guy on the BBC from Nigeria, and he was talking about how they're just in awe that this is taking place in the United States of America, where normally, and by the way, what people are so intellectually dishonest about this. Every election that I've ever voted in, and my first presidential vote was in 1976. I know Mario's going, I wasn't even born then, but anyway, I did the math. I know. But the thing is, yes, 1976. And guess what? The networks, the projected winner is so-and-so. That's nothing new. The votes are certified in December. And, by the way, I think that this is a good time. Well, wait a minute. I do want to mention the situation that happened in the Detroit area where, as I said earlier, you had 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats on the Electoral Commission. And for Wayne County, they had to vote to certify the vote. They had to certify the vote. Initially, it looked like the Republicans were not going to certify it. At which point Donald Trump tweeted with delight about the courage of those people. But they actually got an earful from some of their constituents. This guy's name is, his name is Ned Stabler. And Ned had a few choice words for the two Republicans who were leaning toward not certifying this election. By the way, real quick before we go to this, as I pointed out, Detroit is in Wayne County, obviously predominantly black county, predominantly Democratic leaning county. And this would have been literally hundreds of thousands of votes that would have been tossed if these people didn't certify this. And Mr. Ned Stabler, just a regular guy, had the following comments for the Republicans.
We also know that the Secretary of State and the Attorney General have already tweeted out that your legal arguments are rubbish and you're going to lose when it comes to court. So we're not worried about that at all. I'm also not worried about any of your, things are bad so we can't certify arguments, because that's just ridiculous. You certified in August when they were worse. Less than 50% of the ballots were recountable. Now over 72% are. 58% of them are even balanced when it was less than 30% last time. So it's doubled. It's gotten way better because the Secretary of State actually jumped in and did her job, unlike you. But I know it's not going to change your opinion. You talked about not certifying Detroit, even though you acknowledged that Livonia, a city, by the way, I know you know is 95% white, had bigger variances than Detroit, which is 80% black. We understand, and you now added your name. So I'm not going to try to change your mind. I just want to let you know that the Trump stink, the stain of racism that you, William Hartman, and Monica Palmer have just covered yourself in is going to follow you throughout history. Your grandchildren are going to think of you like Bull Connor or George Wallace. Monica Palmer and William Hartman will forever be known in southeastern Michigan as two racists who did something so unprecedented that they disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of black voters in the city of Detroit because they were ordered to. Probably, I know, Monica, you think Q told you to do it or some other crazy stuff like that. But just know when you try to sleep tonight, that millions of people around the world now on Twitter know the name Monica Palmer and William Hartman as two people completely racist and without an understanding of what integrity means or a shred of human decency. The law isn't on your side, history won't be on your side, your conscience will not be on your side, and Lord knows, when you go to meet your maker, your soul is going to be very, very.
The fascinating thing about that is I saw this on Colbert last night, and that's why I played it. I was unaware of this, but the funny thing was this was a Zoom conversation, as I said, and a couple of times there he said, I know I'm not going to change your mind. Well, apparently the outrage of some of the voters did change their minds, and these two Republicans ultimately sided with the Democrats and certified the results in Wayne County. But the funniest thing, and I wish it was on that clip because they showed it on Colbert, is that the male, I forgot his name, they just said his name, but the guy, the male Republican responded to that. Well, basically the guy told him to go to hell there at the end in a very polite way. And to which the Republican commissioner responded, thank you. Well, I've never said thank you to anybody who told me to go to hell, but what a nice guy. But anyway, at least they did do the right thing in the end, and they did still what Trump thought was a victory from him. As I said, the whole state of Michigan should certify their votes on Monday, no later than Monday, so that'll be taken care of. In fact, Biden's lead just keeps growing in a lot of these states. So they're welcome to continue these challenges, but they're only making themselves look bad. They're not proving anything even slightly resembling fraud. What they're proving is that the election appeared to be a good election. And this is what disturbs me as well. I talked about it earlier, the way the president fired this guy Krebs just because he had the nerve to say he didn't find any irregularities. This guy is such, when I say this guy, I mean Donald Trump. He's an autocrat. He is a demagogue. And basically, if you don't walk lockstep with him, you're history. The Obama approach was a little different. Not always perfect, but Obama bought into a so-called, I can't remember if it was a team of rivals but basically, here's the deal. You don't want a bunch of yes men. You want somebody who's going to tell you when they think you're making a mistake. Many times, Barack Obama did seek the counsel of Joe Biden. That's why I'm not worried about Joe Biden assuming the presidency, because he was very much a part of the Obama presidency. So I think he'll be able to deal with it. Of course, this president, the current president, is going to make it hard for Joe Biden to hit the ground running, because he specifically said today that he won't be releasing any information about COVID-19, handicapping Joe Biden in the middle of what might be the worst part of this pandemic, stage 3, because we're going to be inside more in the winter, January, of course, when he becomes president. And some of these cases where people are being hospitalized, they may be deaths by then in some cases. Yes, fewer people overall are dying, but the cavalier attitude that some people have about COVID-19 fascinates me, because I'm sorry, it's not like I'm just scared to death, but I'm very careful about what I do. And a lot of people are not being careful. I already see the jokes about Governor DeWine's curfew. And if you notice down in Franklin County, where Columbus is, they have actually been put on somewhat of a shutdown down there. They want people, well, not so much a shutdown, but a stay-at-home order. You can still go to work. You can do this. You can do that. But they don't want people running around all the time. They don't want people bunching up in bars and all that. It's just ridiculous. It's a shame that I won't say it's a shame. I guess the founders knew what they were doing when they came up with this system. But the federal government is limited on purpose by what it can do. Joe Biden says he will reach out to Republican governors and ask them about improving their masking and that kind of thing. But the Republican governors, at the end of the day, have the say-so over what they'll do in their state regarding this matter. I can't talk today, folks. But what bothers me is it just seems like it ought to be common sense. And then you have Republicans still doubting this and still thinking it's no more than like a bad cold or the flu when people are dying. I just don't even understand. Between the undevoted Trump supporters and the pandemic skeptics, I have a very low opinion of Americans right now. And I don't know. It is disheartening, because we should be the smartest people on the face of the earth, but we're really acting like, well, in layman's terms, a bunch of dumbasses. And I'm sorry, I can't put it any other way. When I see, I'm sick of the people with the nose snorkel, as a friend of mine calls it. I mean, what's your point? Walking around with your nose hanging out. If you have the virus, you're breathing that virus out through your nose. Thanks. Appreciate it. Don't you get it? It's not about your comfort or your pride. I have the right to do this. It's about you looking out for me and me looking out for you. I don't think that's being communist. I think that's just being courteous. I think that's just being an American. And we used to be able to do that. My gosh, if we had this same attitude back in World War II, everybody would have said, well, I'm not going to ration my sugar so we can take care of the troops that are fighting out there. I'm not going to do without gasoline. I'm going to find a workaround, when they were rationing gas and that kind of thing. A lot of you don't even know what I'm talking about, because it happened so long ago, back in the 1940s, that is. But there was a time when the country made necessary sacrifices for the common good. What's happened to the common good? When all you got to do is put a little piece of cloth across your face, and some of you whine like babies about it. It's ridiculous. Not to mention that when you see the numbers spiking, and then I still see people posting, oh, that's fake. or the classic that I brought up many times. Do you know anybody who has it? Do you know anybody who's died from it? Well, actually, I do have some acquaintances who have contracted it. I don't know anybody personally who's died, but that makes it no less real. I've never had syphilis or gonorrhea, but I know they exist. And by the way, let me say, whew, but anyway, because I can live without both of those. But just as a matter of, just as an example, that's all I'm trying to say. Just because maybe it hasn't personally touched you, that makes it no less a real thing. I mean, do you think, and of course, though, is the fake news just trying to control you? And that's the part that gets me. What control? Telling you not to go sit down and enjoy your happy hour? That's a control. Telling you maybe if you have family from all over the country that are going to have to get on a plane in some cases, walk through an airport with all these other people, and then they're going to come visit grandma and grandpa, and everything's going to be fine. Look at this wedding situation where 70 people got infected. They had masking, they had temperature checks, but some of the people relaxed. Hey, they knew everybody there. It was just like the Rose Garden with the Trump family, how all those Republicans got sick. And yet you still have a White House where they're not wearing masks, even more and more. You know, let's take a quick roll call that I can think of. Kelly McEnany has been infected. Mark Meadows, chief of staff, has been infected. Ben Carson has been infected, the HUD secretary, and a doctor himself, because he felt confident to walk around mask-free because everybody had been checked. Well, that's no guarantee. We just need to modify our behavior. And I know some of you still have to go to work. You still have to take care of your kids. And by the way, I'm here to criticize everybody. I'm very disappointed by the way New York City handled their situation. You don't just suddenly say, Mayor de Blasio is a disappointment. You don't just suddenly tell people who've got kids, who've got jobs that, oh, well, tomorrow schools will be shut down. That's what they did. So if you don't have a support system, somebody to take care of your kid, what do? Do you miss your job? And if you miss your job enough, then you don't have a job. And this is where I also fault our senators and Congress people and the president, who have let down the people who are out there unemployed. By the way, if Congress can't do something during this lame duck session, as of the end of December, a lot of unemployment benefits, the people who are still getting it, they're going to be dropping off. Do the right thing. I know everybody's trying to be a purist and all that. Okay, maybe you didn't get what you wanted over here, but I mean, there's got to be some give and take for the sake of the American people. It's not about you, Nancy Pelosi. It's not about you, Mitch McConnell. And it's definitely not about you, Mr. President. You notice he doesn't even talk about COVID-19 much anymore, period. He just doesn't say a lot about it. I mean, that's just a fact. If I'm lying, please prove it. But I can't find anything of him talking about it. His main concern now is self-preservation. All he's talking about is voter fraud that doesn't exist. That's all he's tweeting about. And it's really sad. You would expect more from the president of the United States, from the leader of the free world. It's a shame that other foreign leaders are taking this seriously, that they've never complained about what a burden it is on them, that they're tired of hearing about COVID, COVID, COVID. Well, that doesn't fix anything, Mr. Trump. I think we deserve better. And I'm positive, I'm cautiously optimistic that some things will be able to be accomplished by Joe Biden when he becomes president. I am glad that he's moving forward with setting up his pandemic task force, and that, somebody said they should put Dr. Birx on that. No, not her, because she played along with Trump one too many times. So I want somebody there like a Fauci, who had, at least as of day before yesterday, he said that Biden had not reached out to him yet, but I would see no reason why he wouldn't. Fauci was one of the early people who called out Trump on his nonsense. I want somebody who tells the truth, even if it's not pretty. And that's why Dr. Fauci's approval ratings are far higher than the president's, because he's a man of integrity, and Donald Trump is far from it. The number here once more, 330-7. No, not 7. I'm doing my old radio numbers. 330-595-1600. 330-595-1600. Surprise me. Give me a call. What are you thinking about? What do you think about anything you've heard today? Or you can even talk about something we haven't addressed today. But I'm trying to see what the next clip was. That was...
What is the electoral college?
Yes, that's a good thing, an education here. And this is short. This is from 4 years ago. So at the end there, they show Biden as the vice president. But real quick, I want to go back to this turned into the Tim show. I'm not bashing you, but dude, you got a lot to say today. Let's see. Tim says...
Call in.
No, yeah, why don't you call, Tim? That would be refreshing. Help a brother out. But anyway, let's see. Tim says he's like a powerful, petulant child. Yes, but like I said, that power's going away real soon. Tim goes on further to say at 8 p.m. tonight on MSNBC, there will be a news special about the changing demographics of the USA. And by the way, that's what the Trump crowd is most afraid of. What I heard the morning host on 570 once describe, and I don't think he meant to be derogatory, as the Browning of America. When you have, for years, blacks were the largest minority group in the United States. He says, I'll call sometime down the line. Okay, Tim, count it. I'm holding you to that. Tim. Okay, but yes, you do. Latinos have surpassed blacks as the largest minority group in the United States. And over the coming years, I believe they always say it's around 2040, thereabout. I probably won't be here to see that. But there's going to come a time where, yes, whites will be the minority in this country. But of course, it's a big country, so there will be enclaves of people. The white nationalist dream is the so-called white ethno-state. That is, look, we'll take Montana, Wyoming, and all that. Black folks, you can have Michigan. Yeah, they've got it all figured out. Oh, by the way, a notable passing in the past week, a guy named Tom Metzger. He was a white supremacist, and he had a pretty big following there for a while. He was the one that reached out to the younger racists, and he would have these basically they were like punk bands, and instead of singing stuff like the Ramones or whatever, they were singing racist songs at white supremacist rallies. But yes, Mr. Metzger passed away. He will not be missed. Or as Mark Twain, I'm not going to say Mark Twain said that, because some people said that is an improper attribution, but the expression goes like, I wish death upon no man, but there have been some eulogies that I've read with great delight. Yeah, actually, it's not eulogy. It's I wish death upon no man, but I have read some obituaries with great delight. And that's how that goes. That's mean. But anyway, yeah, let's keep on going on. A little education here. This is brief, and this is to tell you how and why we have the Electoral College.
All right, so look, back in the day, the founding fathers who set up this whole American thing were split on how to pick a president. Some wanted the president chosen by popular vote. The others wanted to let Congress pick the president. As a compromise, they blended the two ideas together and came up with the Electoral College. But how does it actually work? See, in every state, a party selects a group of electors to represent them if their candidate wins. To become president, a candidate needs 270 electoral votes, slightly over half of the 538 electors. We can usually tell who won the night of the election, but it's not official until about 6 weeks later in December. The electors all get together at their state's capital and they do the actual voting. A month after that, on January 6th, the vice president opens the ballots before a joint session of Congress. The votes are counted and the winner is officially announced. 4 times in history, the candidate who won the popular vote lost the election. In 1876, Samuel J. Tilden bested opponent Rutherford B. Hayes by 250,000 ballots. But Hayes squeaked by in the Electoral College, winning the presidency by 1 electoral vote. Most recently, in 2000, Vice President Al Gore won the popular vote by 500,000. The election came down to the state of Florida. We all know what happens in Florida. Remember dangling chads and all that? After a long recount, Gore lost in the state by just a few hundred votes. That gave Florida and the election to his opponent, George W. Bush.
That was from ABC News, and that was from about 4 years ago. Now you've had another situation more recently with, of course, in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, who won the popular vote by 3 million and lost the electoral college. So, and that's what's happened here in 2020 with Joe Biden. In fact, well, that's not, Joe Biden actually won the popular vote and the electoral college. And prove me wrong, Mr. Trump. You're trying, but you can't. Joe Biden had well above the 270 electoral votes that he needed. So it's pretty much a done deal. But as I said, all states will certify their votes in early December, and that should be the end of it. But we'll see if the president, and not only the president, but some, I don't expect Sean Hannity and those guys to ever come around. They're going to always have Trump's back. But I hope that some of the elected officials, some of the Lindsey Grahams and the Mitch McConnells will say, listen, okay, votes are all certified. This is legit. It's a done deal. Because that's what we need. That's good for the democracy, and we can move on from there. And maybe at that point, although I'm not holding my breath, maybe even this president will start giving the president-elect access to the information he needs to start his presidency on good footing. Although he is experienced, as I stated earlier, it's been 4 years since Joe Biden's been in the White House. A whole lot has changed. And in the case of the president withholding information about the pandemic in some cases, well, that's not only a national security situation, that's a national public health problem. And you're shortchanging your successor by screwing him over like this. Not only are you shortchanging him, Mr. President, you're shortchanging the American people. The people they need leadership that is informed. You are depriving your replacement with this. And that's no way to do business. By the way, just a quick reminder, here we are in the holiday season. And as we go into this holiday season, when this is another thing the president doesn't talk about much anymore. My old stomping grounds. This is Dallas, Texas. And this is a line for food. These are people lining up for a food bank in Dallas, Texas. Isn't that a shame? I mean, that's another thing you don't hear the president talking about. And that's another thing that needs to be addressed. And that's why I'm a little upset with Democrats and Republicans. The American people deserve assistance. You've got people, look at some of those cars. That's not a bunch of hoopties. Those people have nice cars, and they're out there standing. I mean, they're out there lined up for food. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? I mean, of course, the pandemic is the major reason we've come to this place. But the president's mishandling of it has exacerbated a problem that was already devastating. But just for kicks, Jimmy Fallon, and by the way, I want to applaud the guys that audited. I can't say anything right. I was thinking about Trump's taxes. That's why I said audited. What I mean is the guys who edited this. And this is from the Jimmy Fallon show. And although don't hold your breath. We may never get a real one, but Jimmy Fallon put together the concession we all deserve.
My fellow Americans, a short time ago, Joe Biden beat me in the election, and not only did he win, he won by a lot, actually. Therefore, it is time for me to step aside, because let's face it, I wasn't probably on my game, and I wasn't doing so well, and, I'm the only president in history to lose the popular vote twice and to get impeached. It's time for a change. Greatest dream in the world is that Joe Biden wins, because the winner of this vote was decided by a fair and open election. Therefore, I humbly concede to Joe Biden. The American people have responded, and they said to me, "You're fired. Bing, get out."
Oh, if only. And by the way, a shout out to Tim. Not getting on your case, dude. Tim actually turned me on to that clip, and I thought it was excellent. Like I said, the editing there is amazing. But anyway, we went a little long today because I don't think there's a show following me today.
We can.
Yes, that's exactly right, sir. But by the way, programming note, we may not be with you with new episodes next week. By the way, a little credit that. Once again, that clip came from the Jimmy Fallon show, and the previous clip of the food bank came from CBS News. I always like to give credit where credit is due. I give credit to Mario for production today. Thank you very much, sir. I thank you for listening or watching. I'm Mo Ray. And Tim smiled. All right. Well, I got to give brother a shout out, Tim. All right. Thank you, Tim. And but anyway, if we don't see you next week, whether you do it safely and remotely or whether you do take a chance and get together with your family, do try to make the most of the Thanksgiving holiday. And even though we have all these terrible problems going on around us, we do have much to be thankful for in the United States of America. I'm Mo Ray saying, as I always do, keep your eyes on the prize.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us.